I do want to make sure that nobody's sitting alone. So if you're sitting alone, you need to move and make sure you've got someone to talk to during this session. So right now, if you're sitting alone, move. So you're not sitting alone. You need someone to talk to. This is when I wish you were sitting around tables, because I actually have all these activities down here that I'm going to hand you to do during this session, and you need to be able to do them with someone. So, and everybody's going to be engaged. So if you're sitting alone, don't sit alone but right now. So I'm older than everybody in the room. Nobody sits alone. You're sitting alone. Over here. Move and sit with somebody. You need to be sitting with someone during this session, so you have someone to talk to. Because this session is about interactive language. And if you're sitting alone, guess what you can't do? You can't have any interactive language. So you need to be with someone that you can interact with. All right? So part of the session is about interacting together. Whoa. Whoa. I just had this momentary, oh no, I'm going to fall off the stage. Okay. All right. Let's see how this goes. Okay, that's going to change up here, and it didn't change in mine. That's not good. What if I do that? That will do it. I'll have to have a double hit every time. Okay. Questioning and thinking and understanding. 3 processes that interact in a dynamic fashion to advance student learning. Questioning and thinking and understanding. We're going to talk about all of those. They all have to meld together. The one thing I want to talk about at this point, that if you are a teacher in the room, and at one point I used to encourage teachers to videotape themselves. I'm hoping that education has come beyond that. I've been doing sessions for teachers since the early 90s. So we've come, kind of a long way, I hope, since then, right? That's when classrooms were really oriented towards teachers, towards textbooks, and all of that. I am not a believer in textbook-oriented classrooms. I'm a bigger believer in student-oriented classrooms. And so just giving you my bent as we move forward, moved my school pretty much away from being textbook-oriented. That does not mean we don't have any textbooks in my school. I think it's pretty hard to do a math curriculum without a textbook. You need that scope and sequence. You got to move through. But there's a lot of things that we don't use a textbook day in and day out for in my school. Probably math is the only thing that we use that for now. Everything else is built around the curriculum that's built for that particular subject. And so our curriculum now is built a lot around essential questions, around the projects and the things and the thinking that we want kids to be involved in, and the understandings that we want them to come to. And so, and the things that we want them to be engaged in learning. All right, that didn't move anything. Nothing moved. Okay, we got a problem. Let's see what happens if I do this. Does that move that? Moved mine, didn't move that. Well, I have a problem. Okay. We tested out all of this. Let me see what happens if I do this. That didn't do it either. Resume slideshow. It's like my computer kind of died while it sat up here waiting. Anybody have any? You tech people?
We're the computer geeks.
Computer geeks? It's like it froze up and said, I'm not doing anything here. Screen. Oh, yoy.
working. It worked.
It worked up there, but it's not here. And I need to be able to see what I'm doing.
Can I close the other ones out? Or no? Do you need the other ones up?
Nope, we can close anything
You're on
that's there.
constructive knowledge right there.
Yep, that's the one I need. That's the one I need.
This one?
Well, no, that's the one I need right there.
This one right here.
Yeah. Sorry, folks. We had it working. I tested it all out. Oh, look at that.
There you go.
Okay.
Just that button and that button.
Yeah, that's what I was using before, but it wasn't working. Well, thank you. You'll have to show me what you did. Do you know what you did?
What did you do? She said.
I closed out the other one. There was like 2 of them that were open.
Okay. Well, whatever. Oh, yeah. Okay. I love this line. This is a gentleman that I got to know actually right around the time of this, the date of this quote. All learning is progressive, structural, and should eventually lead to cognitive change. Everything you do with children in your classroom should lead to cognitive change. Think about that. Like not just factlets that they're learning. We're in a new age of education. If you are more interested in teaching factlets, do you know what I mean by factlets? That's like my own line. I'm sure other people use it too. But if you're more interested in tests where they're spitting back lots of information about a country or whatever, you know, the information from the story they read or whatever, that is not the education that's going to take them forward. If I want to know the exports of Bolivia, you know where I can find that in 30 seconds or in 15 seconds? Right there. That is the education that kids need these days are things that lead to cognitive change. Kids need to be able to really problem solve, to be able to do thinking that goes deeper, not a bunch of just facts information. You do have to know some facts to be able to begin to problem solve, right? There are some, but if your end all testing involves memorization of facts or memorization of vocabulary words or whatever, you're not really preparing kids for what they need to be able to do down the road. So I'm saying to you, you know, right now, I have another granddaughter is in 7th grade, and she has a teacher who that's his whole thing, and he takes great pride in the fact that kids really struggle in his class because his tests are so hard. And I'm sorry, I'm glad he's in the public school, because if he were in my school, there'd be a big problem. That is not helping kids at all become who they need to be down the road. I teach graduate students. In my class, they have to memorize nothing. They have to apply a lot. When they do the quizzes in my class, their textbooks can be open all day long. You can go into the textbook and find out what those terms mean. But man, you better understand them enough that you can apply them to the questions that are being asked. You know, because that's really what you want kids to be able to do. Not be able to just like have memorized a bunch of information. So I encourage, you know, that's what we're going to be talking about, the interactive language of it all, and the cognitive change that needs to happen as they're applying information. So, all right, now you're going to have to bear with me because, see, I do really believe in this. I believe that you need to, as educators, you need to understand some educational theory. I'm a believer. I teach graduate students. How many of you know who Vygotsky is? How many of you how many of you read some of Vygotsky's theory? How many of you have read any theory? How many of you know who Piaget is? Oh boy, you're going to just love sessions here today and tomorrow. Okay. Well, Vygotsky happens to be the theory that probably is my favorite. And so just bear with me a little and maybe you'll understand him a little bit. I hope enough to go maybe think a little bit about what we learned from Vygotsky. Let me tell you just briefly about him, a little background. Vygotsky was a Russian psychologist, lived 100 years ago now. He practiced 100 years ago now in Russia, in the 20s. He died as a young man, about in his 30s. So he only practiced a short amount of time, but he was an educator. And he believed in the power of interactive language, in the power of working with children and teaching them via dialogue, the importance of dialogue and talking together as they learned. He said higher level cognitive skills are the result of the communicative interactions that occur in the social context. Conceptualized development as the transformation of socially shared activities are turned into internalized processes. So he's saying this, that the way children learn best is via dialogue, via the ability to talk about what they're learning is the way they will internalize processes, all right? And here's what he viewed the internalization of higher mental functions, which simply mean more challenging learning, as a precursor to development. Now, Piaget said you had to be able to be at this level of learning to be able to do certain things, right? So he said as younger kids are very egocentric and very concrete thinkers, right? Couldn't do abstract things. Vygotsky says you can help kids move to a higher level of learning if you just do dialogue with them and ask them good questions and let them talk back to you and then ask them another question. And through dialogue, you can encourage them to a new level of understanding. Piaget said, oh no, they have to be ready for that. Vygotsky said, oh no, through dialogue, you can help them be ready for more difficult and more challenging things to understand. I love that idea, that we can talk to students and help them be ready to understand more difficult concepts. And I fully believe that. So this is his idea of the zone of proximal development. Learning is not development, he said. However, properly organized learning results in mental development and sets in motion a variety of developmental processes that would be impossible apart from learning. So he says that if you organize your activities and give kids right kinds of things to do and think about and talk about, you will help them get to a different level of learning. Now, is this the place? Yep, this is the place where I think I should tell you about this. So what Vygotsky is saying is that language is the major key to learning, okay? It is the major way that we learn and understand new concepts, that language really matters. In my classroom as a child, we did not talk, right? Everybody sat in their desks. Everybody filled in their papers. Everybody did what the teacher said. Only the teacher talked. And if you talked, that was trouble, right? And so many children in my day and age did not learn. Some did. I did. Most did. And here's why. Because the thing that has to happen to learn well is you have to have some sort of language going on in you. Most of us, and this is what Vygotsky says, as you get to be about 6 or 7 years old, you start to internalize language and you begin to talk to yourself. All right, so now think about who was back here were the early ed teachers, right? When your 3 and 4 and even 5-year-olds are playing, what are they doing while they're playing? What are they doing the whole time they're playing? They are talking about what they're doing. I'm doing this, and now I'm doing that, and they're talking about their play the whole time, right? Chattering constantly. And that's because 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds do not have inner language. They don't think with language. They think with pictures. They don't have language inside them. All of their thinking happens out here while they're talking about it, okay? So then they come to first grade, and for some kids, maybe it's starting to go in, but for most it's not. And so when they're sitting at their desks and they're supposed to be working quietly, but instead they're talking, and you tell them, quiet, what have you done? You have stopped their thinking because they still don't have a way to think inside. And my students who have learning differences in 4th grade, and they're trying to do something and they're muttering to themselves, and you say, you're supposed to be working quietly. You have stopped their thinking because they still don't have inner language. They need to talk about their thinking. When children talk, children learn. My friend has a mantra. When teachers talk, children listen. When children talk, children learn. Language is the key to learning. And children need to talk about their learning to be able to really internalize what they're learning. Without the language of learning, they're not learning. You're learning a lot. You learn a lot when you talk about what you're teaching. You even have your own aha experiences while you're talking about what you're learning, what you're teaching. But typically your kids are having, if you're the only one doing the talking, you're having those aha experiences, but they are not. Your students need to talk. They need to talk to each other. They need to talk to you. You need to ask them good questions that get them talking to each other and talking to you. If you're the one doing most of the talking during the session, you're the one doing all the learning. It's just what it is. The one doing the talking is the one doing the learning. All right, last thing here about Piaget, or not, Vygotsky rather. Vygotsky's zone of proximal development is the distance between the actual development levels determined by independent problem solvings. It is what they can do by themselves. It's the distance, what they can do by themselves, all right? And here's the problem you want them to do. The zone of proximal development is this distance between what they could do by themselves and what they could do if you just come alongside and ask them good questions and help them do it. So the thing they could do with a more capable peer or an adult, it's that distance between. And so then you come alongside and you really help them with questions, good questions, and you talk about their learning, and you do that a few times over that how to solve that division problem, and you talk them through it. And I'm not talking about show them on the board one more time. I'm not talking about that, because that does nothing. Nothing at all. You can show them 4 more times. Remember that thing? I do, we do. During that we do part, they need to be doing and talking. Okay, now I'm supposed to do this, is that right? And then I do this, and they're talking through it. Okay, that we do part? Okay, if you're just showing one more time on the board. That's what my granddaughter says that all the time. My granddaughter's Tennyson. Tennyson says to me all the time, I ask them a question and all he does is just show it to me on the board again, and that doesn't help. Because it doesn't. I need her, when I'm helping her with her math, because math is a struggle for her, I have to say, okay, now tell me what you do next. Then what do you do after that? How come you do it that way? Why does that work? Like, she needs to tell me how that's working for her. And then we have to do about 4 that way with her talking through it. And then she goes, oh, that's why that's why I do that. 4 or 5 times we go through that. And then finally it dawns on her. That's why that works. When she has talked about it that many times. Now they can do that with maybe another student even. They're talking about it together. That's okay. But they need to talk about it. They need someone questioning, maybe asking some questions. Really, it is so important. I think especially in math. Anybody, math teachers? Who are the math teachers in the room? Have you read research on math? What does it say about talking about math? Absolutely critical. Critical in that middle school area especially. Got to talk about what they're doing. If they're going to really learn it, they have to talk about it. All right, Bruner. How many have heard about Jerome Bruner? Okay. Jerome Bruner is the father of scaffolding. How many have heard of scaffolding? Okay. So Vygotsky lived 100 years ago, right? Here's what happened with Vygotsky. What happens in Russia when they decide they don't like your research? What do they do with it? They bury it. All right? They decided they didn't like his research because in Russia, they don't really like people talking about stuff, right? So they buried Vygotsky's research. It reemerged in the early 60s and began to be translated into other languages, okay? So around the early, I think maybe late 50s, early 60s, his research was discovered again, Vygotsky's, and Bruner was one of the ones that started to look at what he was saying. And out of Vygotsky's research and then the work of Jerome Bruner comes the whole idea of scaffolding. So I've read student papers that said Vygotsky is the father of scaffolding. He's not. Bruner took Vygotsky's ideas and developed the whole idea of scaffolding. So scaffolding is an adult-child relationship and the dialogue that happens between them that's critical to learning. So when you learned about scaffolding in college or someplace along the way, how much did they talk about dialogue being part of it? None, 0. But when Bruner developed scaffolding, dialogue was critical to scaffolding. They just said scaffolding was building steps. You build steps to learning. No, scaffolding involves dialogue. It's the adult-child relationship and the dialogue that happens between them that's critical to learning. Bruner says it's not the language per se that makes the difference. It's the use of language as the instrument of thinking that matters. It's how you talk with students. It's how you get them to talk to you that matters. It's asking great questions. It's getting them to just talk about how they would work their way through a problem. It's getting them to say to you, why did you spell that word that way? What rule did you apply? So that they'll remember that rule. It's getting them to say, what do you do when you need to, is borrow the right word still for rename? Is that the word now that we use for math? Language changes. Whenever they need to do a math problem and borrow from or rename. It's getting them to talk about what they do with math. Teachers are the principal agents of instruction, and they need to be the principal agents of language. The one doing the talking is the one doing the learning. So back to scaffolding. So scaffolding then is the assistance provided by an adult who understands the demands and the components of a task to a child who has yet to grasp all the elements of that task. The role of the adult is to focus the student on the elements of the task and lead a dialogue that helps the child recognize and apply the critical features in that task. And then in future times, prevent that child from sliding back. And in other words, when that thing comes up again, reminding them, what did we learn about those letters? What did we learn about that task? What did we learn about that? How would you apply that again? Reminding them of that. So this morning, we did this one, okay? And remember that I focused you on critical features, okay? So the critical features of this task were the US and the OUS. Critical features of this task, all right? And then when you still were like floundering in it, then I pointed you to other critical features by giving you sentences. Those are just all ways of questions. They may not have been in the form of questions, but they were still questions. I gave you sentences that used humorous and perilous and righteous. And suddenly you had the aha experience, right? That said, oh, wait a minute, those are adjectives. Yes. Did I ever tell you they were adjectives? No, right? Instead, I kept just adding another scaffold that told you. It was not a lesson. It wasn't boys and girls. Today we're going to learn when to use US and OUS. It was not that lesson. It was instead, here's the task, okay? What do you see that's the same about these words? What's different about these words? Let's determine when we're going to use US and OUS. Pointing to critical features. Helping you find the aha experience. You can do that with so many things in so many lessons. That's where you want to go with lessons. That's helping kids become the curious learners you want them to be. And way better than every day just being the dispenser of information. Help them be the finders of information, whatever that might be. I'm totally a believer, especially in our schools. We have this amazing privilege. I don't know, I think it's in most every state. Am I right about New York? Do you guys have to do the state tests in New York? Yes? No? Tell me. No? No. Hawaii, do you have to do the state tests? No? Okay. We are man, what a privilege. We get to teach in ways that are exciting. We don't have to make sure that we have had this coverage of massive amounts of material, right? We instead can focus kids on really deep and wonderful learning and curious learning. And that is amazing. We don't have to get through whole textbooks. There's nothing that says that we have to do that. We instead can say, let's really be curious about things, because textbooks are nothing more than everything that we can find in that phone tomorrow. Let's find ways to really help kids be curious about stuff. And those kinds of lessons will do that, but it also will give them tools that they need for what they need to do down the road in learning. This is just a really simple example of that kind of learning. You have to take it and apply it to your own your own discipline, whatever it is you're teaching. Words and the concepts they represent provide the foundation for advanced literacy and thinking. Students need to learn words and the use of language, as they are the bridge from the lower level skills to the higher level skills. And language is the basis for quality scaffolds, and questions drive the interactions. All right, let's try one. Yep, let's try one. Let me give you one or a couple to play with here. Okay, here we go. All right. Word sorts. Sort them and figure out the rule. If I run out, I got more. Sort them, figure out the rule. Nope, I'll be back. Let me get a few others here. DG. Ah. What's in this group? I think this group will sort. There you go.
Thank you.
There you go. Sort them. Pass them down there. I don't know. We'll see what I've got. Coming down your other side here. Sort them. Tell me the rule.
Thank you.
Anybody else need one?
We didn't get any in this round.
So your sound is?
Oh,
Cool.
coal.
Cool.
Cool. So C-L-E would be a noun. C-L would be a...
So why is this CLE and why is this
Yeah.
CALs and CLEs?
This is describing.
So all of your things say cool. All of yours say cool, right? At the end. Good. Yep. They all say cool. What's the difference? What's the difference? They all say cool. Yep.
Well, these are all ICAL. These are ICLE, except for this one.
Well, so just use the cool part, not the cool, just the cool.
These are nouns. These are adjectives.
Okay.
And these are nouns.
Okay. So hinge doesn't belong over there. So what's the difference? Okay. Okay. And all right. So what is the same about all the DGE words?
There's a vowel.
How many vowels? How many vowels? One short vowel.
We need you to ask us some questions. We want an
Okay.
aha moment here.
All right. So you have all these over here. What's the same about all those words? DGE. What else is the same about all those words?
They're all nouns, but those are nouns. I keep
Yep.
trying to look for those.
Okay, it doesn't have anything to do with part of speech.
Okay.
Well, it confused us because some of them were short and some were long because this is right?
Well,
That's longer.
Well, these were all short.
A's isn't long.
So those are all short
Apple.
vowels?
Yes, they are.
But here's a long and here's a short.
Yep, that's right. So all of these have what's right before the DGE.
A short vowel.
That's right. Is over here that short vowel right before?
No,
No.
there's a long one or a consonant.
Mm-hmm.
Consonant. So it's another letter.
Yep. So it has either two vowels or a consonant or a long vowel before. All here, these are all just a single short vowel. I should have edge there too.
I even said "ah" without even meaning it.
All right. Did you guys get yours? All right. What is it?
Well, yeah. Sure, yeah. It seems as though we have astronomical, statistical, critical, and comical, all being adjectives.
Yes.
And article, uncle, particle, and clavicle being nouns.
Yep. Okay. And
Okay, we think we got it. We think short vowel sounds and longer vowel sounds because of the D. But Hinge was throwing us off.
okay, so it doesn't have anything to do with long vowels over here. Short vowels, you're right. Okay. It's a single short vowel comes before the DGE. Okay. And then consonant, long vowel, two vowels before anything else. The j sound. The sound is j.
Okay.
Sound is j. So when you hear j, if it's a short one, a single short vowel before, it's the DGE. Anything else, it's just a GE. You need the DGE. Okay? All right. Did you get yours?
So these all go together.
Okay. And you said it was what?
We said it was the difference between adjectives and nouns.
Okay. Good.
Short vowel sounds.
Wait, what do you mean closed?
Well, I just meant short. I said the wrong one.
Oh, these were
Short vowel sounds
Yep.
that has the DGE.
Yes.
I figured it out all on my own.
Okay.
And they go straight from the vowel to the DGE.
Okay.
Versus the other one has the consonant before.
And because these sound like those, that's why they go together.
Well, they all end in j.
J.
They all end in j. Okay.
But
But
just
to
no
make the
D.
J sound, you need the E at the end. Because it would be good.
Yes.
She said, and
But
this
they
is
don't
why I'm
have-
a gym teacher.
Yeah, that's why I started. But they don't have the D's over here because they don't have the vowels.
What? They don't have one short vowel.
One short vowel.
Yes. Okay. So listen, if you have the DGE one, listen up. Listen. If you have the DGE list, okay, that's a one rule, three applications. In words that have a single short vowel, okay, as those do, and I should have edge in that as well, because the problem with that list that I have there is you could say, well, they all have a consonant and then a vowel. That consonant has nothing to do with it. But in words that have that are one syllable and have a single short vowel, like you have in that list, and it has a j at the end, it has to be spelled with a DGE, okay? That same rule applies to CK and TCH. A single short vowel that ends in k gets a CK, or if it ends in ch, it gets a TCH. If they have a consonant before the ch, or the j, or the k, then they get just a GE, or a K, or just the CK, or T, or the CH, okay? So that same rule applies to those spelling patterns. All right? Anyway, but it has to do with one short vowel. If there's two vowels, it changes to the GE. If there's a consonant, GE. If there's a long vowel, GE. Okay? All right. And the other one is, yes, are adjectives and nouns on the CL words, or the COL word. And you know what? That's one of those things, that CLE, CAL, that you would say to students, oh, that's one you just have to learn. I mean, there's not, There is an exact rule for that. That if you hear cool at the end of a word, if it's an adjective, it's spelled C-A-L. If it's a noun, it's spelled C-L-E. Every time. I love that. Every time. Right? So, my friend back here running the sound, he said he's an engineer. If someone had told him when he was a child that there were rules for spelling like that, he could have learned to spell because he loves rules. See? He loved math because there were rules for how math worked. All right? Rules. When I came around, what I gave you was just when you didn't know or you hadn't figured it out. Some of you figured it out because you like what we had been doing. You already knew to start trying to figure out what was the same in those. But my questions weren't hard questions. They were just, what's the same? What I'm pointing you exactly what scaffolding does. You point them to what are the critical features that matter in this activity. That's what in your own discipline, you would give the kids what they need to do, and you would be pointing them to the critical features of that activity and helping them see and find what they need to find. If it's a science experiment, you're pointing them to the critical features of what they need to be looking for. So, scaffolding is identifying a concept a child is struggling to understand and nudging them from one level of competence to the next, and eventually to independent application of the instructed skill. Implies that not only will the student learn a new concept or procedure, but that true conceptual or cognitive reorganization will result. All right. Yeah, let's do another. I don't know how many I have of these, so you may have to hang over chairs. Let's see how far around these go. Let's see how far around. This is something that my students, this is middle school, maybe 5th, 6th, 7th grade work right now. My students struggled with this, struggled. All right? I'll start in the back so they have a little bit more time this time. But how do your students do with understanding the difference between a linking verb and a helping verb? Yeah, just clip them back up and we'll gather them up later. You guys kind of look up here with them. That'll help. Look up here with them. Sort these. Sort these and determine what the difference is from looking at the sentences between a linking verb and a helping verb. No, I didn't forget you guys back here. Here you go. You guys gather together. Sort them out. What's the difference between a linking verb and a helping verb? Can you guys, yeah, work with them. Okay, you guys, work with these guys right here. There you go. Here you go. Here's another set. You guys need some over there? Yeah, I'll find them all afterwards. Get over there and share with them. You might want to come kneel and look over.
So the helpers go along with a verb, and right? Is our was right? That
Yeah,
be
but
split
C
that
is
way?
located.
Well, is located a.
separate that she came, so now she doesn't want me to just tell you what they are. So I have to ask you questions. They're already
Okay.
sorted into the two
Okay.
groups, and I already know what the answer is.
Okay, so do they know what the answer is?
Not
No,
yet.
we were talking. But we were talking about your method of asking questions.
Because she's a music
getting
teacher, she loves to have the kids
I
talk.
love the way you teach because I get a very noisy classroom because
Yeah,
I get them to talk.
yeah. So I think classrooms that are noisy, some people think they're disorganized, but I think they're typically means they're really learning stuff. Okay? So now what you need to do is I would say to the kids, look at this group and tell me what's the same about that group. That I think is the best way to think about that. What's the same? Okay.
Okay. For was, so was, it's got to be like a linking. Right? And then we have team, okay, was practicing, are playing. Is that the,
Yeah, you don't have your sort
don't have it
together
right?
yet.
You don't have it
No.
right?
Those two at the end, those two do go together.
Those
Our
two
playing
do.
was
Yeah,
practicing.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so the was, so that's the same as it is. Are, this is like family is. Walmart is.
Okay, so it's not doesn't have anything to do with is and was.
Okay.
They can be both of them can be both linking or helping. So that's what's confusing to kids because all of those words can be linking or helping. It's how they're used in the sentences that matter.
So the linking would be like the is.
No, is can be linking or helping. It's what comes after them that matters. So think about that. Think about what comes after them. These guys are sorting. Do you guys have a sort? Do you have a sort?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, up here we have our linking verbs, and then there's that. So is.
Okay.
And then down here the helpers.
Okay. Okay.
I always tell my students that for the helping verb we have the two together, and then the linking verb stands alone.
And what do you mean by two together?
So like is and then located, or is going, are playing.
But what's the other one? What do you mean two together?
Two verbs. So like.
So what's
are
the
and
other
then
one?
Playing.
What is the other one?
Playing. Is the,
But what is that?
Verb and adverb.
No. No.
No, not for, what is it?
I don't know. I guess you have me stumped.
Yeah, I know what it is.
Predicate.
No.
It's a
An action.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
It has to be with and
Oh my god, I know what
Yeah.
a verb is.
yes.
Okay, it has to be
Well, you
oh.
hadn't said that yet. You just said another one.
Okay.
What do you mean another one? What? So it has to go with and
Action. With an action.
yes.
Okay.
It has to be with the helping has to be helping and action.
Okay.
For the other one, what's it linking?
An adjective, or a noun and an adjective.
Always?
If you don't want it to,
No,
it doesn't
not
have to.
always.
It's like she's like.
Is professor an adjective?
No. I know that's why
the
there I'm
professor.
like that's not. I mean,
Can it be?
Describing
If
Susan.
you're describing a person, can it be an adjective? So just the description. I don't know.
Professor.
I
teach math.
They're the one that taught me. So
It's professor.
I didn't do
It
a good job.
describes Susan, but it's not an adjective.
No, it's not.
It's a noun.
Yes. So it's so it would be linking a predicate noun or a predicate adjective. So it's linking to a predicate noun or a predicate adjective. So it's either linking to a descriptor or renaming the subject.
okay.
Did you guys get that?
So,
Is going, was practicing. Yes. Now you have your sort.
okay, so what did we do? Now we need to know what we did.
Okay. So this group down here, what's the same about this second group?
there's some action going on.
Yes. So the verb, the being verb is are, was, were, is connected with what? With
Another verb.
another verb. Yes, it's helping another verb. In this one up there,
It's a state of being.
it's linking the subject to a Thomas is happy. The birds are red.
The direct object.
No,
They're adjectives.
they're not all adjectives. Like professor is a noun, but it's renaming. So the pastor was Jim. So it's either a noun or a verb, but it's describing the subject to some degree. So it's linking the two together.
I think we need remedial help.
My students struggled with this, but sorting helps because it helps them at least see the difference. Teachers usually just stand up and like bark it. It's this, it's this, it's this, and they never.
There's no sense of discovery.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. All right. So did you get your sorts right? Nope, I think you can't because you have to have 4 and 4. So which ones doesn't go? This one's not there because located can yes.
Is located, is going, was practicing, are playing.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, you can be located.
Yes.
You can be that.
Yeah.
But you can also
I'm
be
locating
happy,
it there.
right?
What about happy? I don't understand. This implies this other.
Describes
Because it's a what?
adjective.
Yeah. It's a predicate adjective. So these are linking your subject to something that's describing it here, whether it's renaming it as a predicate noun or a predicate adjective, either one. But it's linking it. Okay? Where that one in those the being verb is always connected to in a helping verb is connected to an action. Helping verbs have an action with them. They're the same words, different function. Okay? All right, did you all enjoy that? Okay? Do you understand that the thinking about that sort helps students to think about the difference? Rather than you standing at a board and telling them the difference, the sort helps them think about it, right? That's a better way to start with that kind of activity than to just tell them or open a book and have them do a workbook page. My students rarely got this concept until I did some things that helped them sort it and helped them think about what was really happening here. They needed that kind of an activity to help them discover what the differences were. All right? So what you're doing in the whole idea of scaffolding is giving them some purpose, some ownership in what they're learning. And making them feel like what they're learning is related to things they already know. They know what verbs are. They know what action verbs are. Now a helping verb is just an addition to that action verb. All right? You're just structuring it for them in a way that's helping them understand it. And it's the collaboration that we're working together. I'm not really evaluating their work there. I'm coming around and saying, so what did you notice there? And what's the same about what you're doing? So I'm not grading their work. That makes it more collaborative as we work together, right? And they're still learning. And as they work with that sort, and then as we do take it to some kind of paper and pencil task, or whatever that might be, they're more internalizing what they're learning. All right, so some concerns about scaffolding that you must be careful with. And that is that you don't use it primarily to provide imposed specific strategies taught in a didactic or a behavioral way, because that can be done. I've seen it done, especially in math, where you're building that you must solve this problem with these steps. That's not a scaffold. A scaffold is helping students to learn a concept, and you're providing a way to help them by giving them an activity to learn the concept. It must focus clearly on the communication dynamics. That's the important piece of the scaffold. And dialogue should be the means of support. So a scaffold isn't a workbook page. That's not a scaffold. A scaffold is an activity that when they work through it, they're building a concept through the activity, through the dialogue that happens. It is the questions asked and the answers and discussions and reflections that follow provides the opportunity for interactive language that can lead to thoughtful construction of new knowledge. All right? The language is critical. All right, here we go with one more. All right? For you math folks out there, let's do a math. You love the math, don't you? Ah, man. Hopefully I've got lots. All right, boys and girls. How are we doing on time? Let me look at our time here. When are we supposed to be done here, Ed? What time? 2:30. I'm good. All right, boys and girls. Yesterday we learned how to find the area of a rectangle, okay? Who can remind me, how do we find an area of a rectangle? What do we do? Okay, and then what do we do once we've measured the? Okay, the area of a rectangle, not the perimeter. Length times width, okay? So we're not at tables and we don't have rulers, but I will tell you that what I would want you to do as I give you this is find the area of this rectangle that is 4 inches by 6 inches, okay? So just, pretend that you do have that and find the area of this rectangle, okay? Find the area of the rectangle. Let me give you lots of rectangles out here. I think I've got hopefully lots of rectangles. All you math folks. You math folks? No, you're not math folks over here, are you? Someone drew on that one. Oh, well. Here you go.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yep. Am I out of rectangles in this group? Oh, there's one more. I'm not sure that's the right size. That doesn't look right. Let me get in this one. Got a few more in here. That one looks better. There. Let me see what else is in here. Oh, look at that. There we go.
Thank you.
Yep. Oh, look at this. Lots more. You can tell I went into the old paper room at my school to get old junk paper. It's a pretend. Did they write centimeters? Did someone write on that? Just ignore their writing. It's just 4 by 6. All right. All right. So as a class, I would have you doing that, just finding the area. All right. Now, knowing what you just did, okay, I want you to think about this today. I want you to find the area, take this triangle, and look at it with your rectangle, and tell me the area of that triangle. Tell me the area of the triangle. Hopefully you're all getting a good triangle to go with your rectangle. There you go. What do you have there? What color? That's good. I got to find all the right pieces in here. What color is it? Oh, there you go. That'll work. Did you guys get one yet? A triangle? Hopefully I'm giving you right pieces. Let's see. What do you have there? Pink one. Yep. I don't know. I'm trying to find one because I want it to be contrasting.
Oh no, we got it's too small.
It has to be the right size. I think, no, that's not right. Oh boy. That one will.
Thank you, ma'am.
There you go. All right. I need a few more. Where are they? There we go. That's one. Who needs one? You guys need one. They need one. Let me get all these in a thing here. Oh, here we go. You guys need one?
Thank you.
Yep. Oh, look at this. I got a pink one. You need a pink one? Pink. Will that work? You guys need a brown one down here? Ah. Did you guys get it right back here?
Yes.
Do you have it all figured out? Then I'm coming to you for the explanation in a minute. Okay? Do you have it all figured out?
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm coming to you for an explanation in a minute.
Coming to you for
I want to know how to find the area of a triangle.
We got two more. I need two more for my puzzle.
Oh look, it's all gonna be yellow.
I'm coming to you soon. I want to know how to find the area of a triangle.
I know. Thank you.
How do you find the area of a triangle? You have two browns. That wasn't good.
Yeah.
Let me give you some pinks here.
Oh, we're doing something else. Okay. These?
How about some yellows? All right. Okay, let's go back here and listen to these gentlemen and see what they learned back here. I want to hear what these guys learned.
Hey, we learned.
Okay, listen up. Tell me what did you guys discover from your first triangle?
We knew that our first triangle, if you took the two smaller open areas, and they would fit into a larger triangle, and we proved that
How did you prove that?
by when you gave us the two smaller ones, we put them on the little pink one.
What do you mean you put them on it?
Put them on it.
Oh, so those two small ones were,
They go on top.
okay. So those two small ones added to the same size.
They are equal.
Okay. Okay. And then what did that come out then in comparison to the rectangle?
We know that it was half of the area.
It was half the size of the rectangle. Okay. All right. So how then do you find the area of a triangle?
Length times width.
So first of all, how did you find the area of the rectangle?
Length times width.
Length times width, or length times height. Okay? Either one. Length times width, length times height. So then what do you know then to find the area of a triangle?
Length times width divided by 2.
What's the same way as saying divided by 2?
Just one half.
Just,
It's one half.
okay, so the triangle is what part of the rectangle?
Okay, it's one half of the rectangle.
1/2 of it. So you can say that at the beginning of your formula then. So the area of a rectangle is base times height. So you can say then the
It's gonna be 1/2 of the base times height.
1/2 of the base times the height. Why does that work? Because what's the relationship between the triangle and the rectangle?
Well, the triangle is 1/2 of the rectangle.
Yes. Do you know that a triangle is always half of a rectangle? You can take any triangle and add to it, and it will always be half of a rectangle. So why is a triangle, why is the formula then for a triangle 1/2 the base times the height? Because a triangle is always what part of a rectangle? Half. All right. Now in your math books and in your lessons in your class, you learned yesterday how to do the area of a rectangle, and you say, now boys and girls, today we're going to learn something new. We're going to learn about the area of a triangle. To get the area of a triangle, you do 1/2 the base times the height. That is not something new. That is connected to what they learned yesterday. It's very connected. It is not new. And you know what? My students they always knew how to find the area of a rectangle. They never knew how to find the area of a triangle. Do you know why? Because it was taught like it was some new thing. And it's not some new thing. Put a triangle next to a rectangle like that, they look at it and they go, oh, a triangle is just half of a rectangle. Oh my goodness, the area of a triangle is just half of the area of a rectangle. It's not new. It's not hard. It's not rocket science. It's just half of a rectangle. Always. Draw some triangles on the board. Show them that it's just half of a triangle is only half of a rectangle. Every time. Every time. All right? Use language. Have them play with it. Have them see it. It's not like, we show them this in a book, and it's like abstract. What are our kids who are in elementary school, 5th grade, trying to learn this? Are they abstract thinkers? Are they? What do we know from Piaget? Are they abstract thinkers? They're not. They're concrete thinkers. If you give that to them in old construction paper that I pulled out of the elementary crap construction paper pile, all that old, you look at it, it's all that old faded construction paper. And I just cut pieces. And they play with it. Right? Understanding is more likely to occur when a student is required to elaborate or defend his position to others. The burden of explanation is often the push to make him or her evaluate, integrate, and elaborate knowledge in new ways. All right? Did I make them back there be more clear about what I wanted them to say? Yes. Push them to the right language. Didn't settle for just muddled language. Push them to a good formula, to good language, right? That's what we need them to do. When you do word problems, same thing. Last summer, Harry had a garden 12 feet by 15 feet. This year, each dimension was increased by 3 feet. How much was the area increased? This is another kind of problem that confounds my students. What do they need to do to be able to solve this problem? And I'm not asking you for the math. I'm asking you for the thing they need to do to understand this problem. Conceptualize it how? Draw a picture. Draw it. That would be the first thing I would be having students do when they solved a problem like this. Draw a picture. What does that look like? 12 by 15 feet. They know how to solve that, right? They know how to find area. But now they're going to increase it. What does that look like? That's important that they can draw that and kind of see then what they need to do. And they can conceptualize it that way. And then they understand how they need, by how much area was it increased. Now they're going to understand from looking at it more and then talking about it or working with a friend as they draw the picture, coming to the idea that, oh, wait a minute, I'm finding the area out here, I'm going to have to subtract those two numbers. But when they just try to read it and do it, they really don't know what to do with that problem. Remember, elementary kids, what are they? Concrete thinkers. Concrete thinkers. So important that you help them really be able to talk through and think about and conceptualize what they're doing by your questions. Now, do you have children in your room who don't need to draw that? You do, but I will contend this. You have children in your room who don't need to draw this, but they really don't know what they're solving. I'll bet you have, out of 20 kids in your classroom, you have some kids that you think are really math, like geniuses, like they're just really good. I'll bet one of those kids can't draw that picture. I'll bet. And try it sometime. I was working with a teacher, and she was like really excited to show me how good this student was at math. And so she gave him this like really challenging problem to do so I could watch how good he was at math. He got so lost in that problem. He was so lost. And she was so lost. And finally, she just went over and said, well, if I was doing that, this is what I would do. And she showed him how to solve the problem. Who learned anything that day? He didn't learn anything. He didn't know what to do with it. She didn't learn anything. She didn't know why it was lost. The only thing she needed to do was say, draw me a picture about what you're thinking there. And she might have been able to figure out why he didn't understand what he was doing. And he might have then figured out why he didn't understand. In math, it is really, there's a type of math instruction called CRA. Now, I'll see if I can, it stands for Concrete Representational Abstract. Concrete is when they need to deal with manipulatives, things in their hands. Representational is when they need to draw a picture of it. Abstract is when they can do it without any of that. You really need to figure out what level your students are at. And it's really okay in your classroom if kids are doing things at all three of those levels. But give them what they need in order to be able to conceive what they're doing and solve the problems. Did I have that up there before? No. Oh, let's go this way. The questioning process is not only a vehicle for eliciting answers, can also keep them from thinking and learning beyond initial correct response. What teachers do with student responses, move students to ask their own questions or extend a peer's response, has a dramatic impact on the extent to which students continue their journey of thinking. What this refers to is this. When you ask a question in a class and a student gives the right answer and you go, oh yeah, good answer. When you say that, what happens to the class then as they think about what you just asked? Everybody stops thinking. When maybe there were some other things to think about. Here's a good example. Which number doesn't belong? Someone tell me. 12 doesn't belong. Why do you say 12 doesn't belong? It's not a square root, not a square. Okay? All right. So if I move along now, good enough? Oh, could there be another answer? Oh, why 9? Oh, 9's not even. Okay. What else about 9? It's only single digit. It's not divisible by 4? Yeah. All right. See, if I could have just said, yep, 12's the right answer and moved on, right? And you all would have been, okay, good, right? Sometimes you just have to kind of let kids keep thinking and allow thinking to be, there's lots more things to think about. All right. Questions are tools for both information seeking and information processing. Who was the master teacher? How did Jesus teach? Oh, man. Sermon on the Mount, he had times when he just taught, right? But most of the time, Jesus just asked questions, didn't he? Man, just ask the questions. What do you want me to do for you? He asked the blind man. And what did he expect? What did he expect from the blind man? He expected the blind man to describe his need, right? And tell him what he needed, advocate for himself. Yeah, more than just, heal me, right? He expected him to give him more. It's fun to study Jesus' questions. It's also fun to study. That's another whole thing, to study his methods of instruction. Lots of methods of instruction. All right, I am not going to keep going with Bloom's taxonomy, but I want you to go back and look at that, because Bloom's taxonomy is really important when it comes to the types of questions you ask and in your classrooms. You must make sure you're asking both lower level questions and higher level questions. You have that in front of you on the slides, okay? But I do want to just skip forward and have you see that even within learning something like a new spelling rule, that you would ask all different kinds of questions, like learning this TCH rule. So you would analyze a group of words. You would create a rule that dictates when to use TCH. We've already talked about that. We would apply that rule in an assignment. We would understand by comparing words that use that rule and those that don't. And we would remember that rule, able to consistently apply the rule by remembering it. We can also, this is the same thing, we would use all the levels of Bloom's taxonomy in a math lesson, asking how many chairs are in the room. So we have to remember how many chairs are in each row. We have to draw a picture that illustrates the rows in the rows of chairs, and determine how we're going to apply by carrying out how many chairs are in the row or in the room, and explain how 5 times 3 is the same as 3 times 5. So Bloom's taxonomy can just be applied throughout all different kinds of lessons in really simple ways. All right? I had one more really good activity. Oh, darn. Okay. We'll have to not do that, because we're really kind of at the end of our time here. So the goal of helping every student become effective questioner is somewhat daunting. Only a few seem to be born questioners, possessing the skills of questioning. We want our students to also ask good questions. So in order to do that, here's some things that you can do. For younger kids, you should get them to write their own questions, using just who, what, where, when, and why. Research has shown us that when you do in social studies and in reading and those places where you expect them to do the workbook questions at the end of the chapter, you know that thing? Boy, now I wish I was doing also reading comprehension. So here's the deal. We've taught kids that reading comprehension happens at the end of reading, because we have them read the story and answer the questions. And so we have built in an understanding with students that comprehension happens after they read, because that's when we have them answer the questions. And so kids who struggle with comprehension have this understanding that that's when they figure out what the story was about. But good readers actually comprehend when? While they read. So if you have students write their own questions about what they're reading, whether that's in social studies or reading story or whatever, if you have them write one question for each one of those, they're going to write those questions while they're reading because they don't want to have to go back and find those questions they might write. They'll try to figure out what they are while they're reading, and as a result, they'll be thinking about their reading while they're reading it, and their comprehension will be better. So research shows that it is way better to have students write their own questions than to answer the questions at the end of the chapter. They will better remember what they read. I've tried it with my students. I've seen it happen. It's amazing, okay? You can have them write questions that a teacher might ask. You can have them, what questions might I ask you? So the next day they come back with the questions that they might talk about in class. When a student is stuck in a math problem, what question should I ask you next to help you get unstuck? Have students write questions that a reporter might ask about a certain thing that you've been reading. Work together in groups to create questions. Have students just writing questions. From that, that'll help them learn to ask questions. Research suggests that providing students with generic question stems and questions a powerful method to teach students to generate questions. So you can just give them some kind of paper that they have question stems in order to write their own questions. And those are just some examples of question stems. And you all are, I hope, familiar with reciprocal teaching. That's just another way to help kids be able to do that. Putting kids in groups and using reciprocal teaching, encourage you to read about that because it's another powerful way to teach. These are questions that you would use, and these are methods that encourage good questioning, good methods of instruction that encourages construction of knowledge. So there you go. References are there. Hope you gleaned a little something. But the whole point there is if you develop activities that get kids really interacting with each other, talking with each other, finding what that thing is you want them to learn through an interactive process, they will learn that information more. And your role then is to be the floater in the room that asks the questions that helps them along the way. All right, hope you gleaned something. Happy day. Don't be afraid to come up and ask or whatever. I can handle any. Well, maybe not any, but we'll give it a shot. Papers, stick them on the end of the rows. I'll come gather them up.